If Games Workshop go out of business, will you just carry on with what you have, or will you start a new gaming system? One of the questions from today's Q&A. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, time for a Q&A, and it's been a while since I made the previous one. I always seem to say that on these, but in this case it's been nearly 3 months. I can't believe time's just flown past. Hopefully the questions are still relevant. So yeah, if you've got any more questions that you would like to ask me, then pop those questions in the comments below, and I'll answer them in the next video, which hopefully will come around a little bit quicker. I try to aim for about once every 1 or 2 months, but this one's just been extended slightly. Anyway, on with the questions. And the first question is from TableTop Warzone. Awesome channel, go and check them out. And he says, are the armies that you collect ever complete, or will you always add to them? I only have one army which I would say is 100% complete, and that's my Dark Eldar, which is obviously what I did on the £25 army challenge, or I did that in 2 sections. So I spent £50, and with the help of a lot of very generous people and some good eBay buys, I managed to get 2,200 points worth of Dark Eldar for £50. And then even the case that they're in is a prize that I won on YouTube. So the whole kit is basically for 50 quid. And not only that, but I achieved painting the whole army in 31 days for the Warboss Tape Painting Challenge. So to me, that army is complete. I don't want to add to it because I think it will take away with what I achieved. So yeah, for me, it's done. I've got a case with an army in, 2,000 points-ish, painted in a month. What more could I want? So for me, that one's finished. The next ones I'll always be adding to. The Tyranids, there's still some more stuff that I want to get for those. The Space Wolves will definitely be adding to. I need Thunderwolf Cavalry, etc. And then the Eldar. The Eldar's not finished, and I've still got stuff to paint, and I'm sure I'll add stuff to it as well, especially with the new stuff coming out, of course, as well. So yeah, the Dark Eldar though, finished. I have absolutely no plans to expand that. I don't really care how bad the units and army is that I've got already. The army wasn't built for that. The army was built for the challenge of making an army cheaply. Thank you for your question. Of course, as always, there are links to all the channels that I mentioned in the description. Please head on over and check any out that you're not sub to already. Okay, so the next question is from Without a Clue WarGaming, in particular from James, and he says, how did you get into the hobby? What army did you choose? And if you were to start from scratch, what army would you start with now? Thank you, James, for the question. I know you're fairly new to the channel. Of course, I have answered some of this in the past, but it's great to have a refresh, and I've got a lot of new subscribers, so welcome, of course, to all my new subs. So yeah, there's actually some good questions. So how did you get into the hobby? I was introduced to the hobby by a work colleague when I was around 30. So yeah, quite a long time ago, about 14 years ago. Yeah, that's how old I am. And he was about 18 at the time. I remember saying to him, "Oh no, I'm far too old to get into that hobby." And he said, "No, a lot of older people do it." Okay then, so we arranged a game. He gave me his Tyranid army, which he was just starting, and he played his brother's orcs. And all I can remember from that game, we played on a round table, was all we had. And the thing that I remember from the game, the thing that really stood out and made me want to play the game, was when I did a psychic power with a Tyranid, and it exploded an orc buggy, like just went, and it's like that explosion just triggered off an explosion in my brain. So wow, at 40k, I want to do it. So that was the story of how I got into it. What army did you choose? I chose Necrons. I really am and ahed about what army to choose until I walked into, it wasn't actually Games Workshop, it was a store that sold Games Workshop stuff. And I walked in there, I just saw all the codexes. I saw the picture on the front of the Necrons. I absolutely love that picture. This is the old black codex. And I chose Necrons purely because of the picture on the front of the codex. I never really looked back. Love Necrons. And the last question he said is, if you were to start from scratch, what would you start with now? I really like this question because it's quite relevant to an experience which has just happened to me. So I recently, I was out like a 10-minute break from work, and I thought I'd just nip into the Games Workshop store, just have a browse around. So I went into the store, looked in the display cabinet, and I tell you what, I was absolutely blown away by all the Age of Sigmar models that were there. How awesome do they look? They're so cool. And I had a look at all the rule books, and all the rule books, they just look really, really awesome. And I have to be honest, forgetting like all of my history, imagining myself going into Games Workshop for the first time, or at least, you know, thinking about getting into the game or a game and not knowing what to do and what armies to choose, and I just generally walked into the store. I have to admit that I would be drawn to Age of Sigmar. You know, just from a new player perspective. I think if I went into the store, I had a look around, all these awesome games and stuff, and I saw all the awesome Age of Sigmar models, had a look at the rule books, I think I would be tempted. And I have to be honest, I would probably play Age of Sigmar if I was starting out fresh now. Interesting answer, eh? Bet you didn't expect that. And to be honest, I didn't. It wasn't until I walked into the store. Of course, I do absolutely love 40k. You know, there's no doubt about that. But it was interesting, probably just because of all the new models, you know, and all the new sculpts and stuff. And the 40k stuff that were in there were just all sort of, let's face it, just a lot of it was older models and stuff. And I had Magnus in there, he looked pretty cool on the shelf. But just so much really, really nice Age of Sigmar models. Okay, so next question is from Cruorangelussilicis, Blood Angels Rock. And he says, what foods and drinks do you absolutely detest? I've had to think quite hard about this. I don't think there's any drink that I absolutely detest. I'm not a fan of cold lemon tea. I can drink it, I don't detest it, but it's not nice, that nice. Food wise, there aren't many foods that I don't like. I am not a fan of fish. I'm not a fish fan. I do eat fish, but most of it is in batter. So, you know, I like scampi, you know, cod in batter. But if you gave me like a trout on a plate, I had to skin and bone and eat, and no thanks. So I'm going to say fish. You know, so that would definitely be my very, very last choice on the menu. So yeah, thank you for the question, Mike. Next is from James and his stuff. He says, are there any models that you want but don't have? There's many models that I want and don't have. As always, I think we could all say that. Obviously within restrictions of sort of realistic buys. So for example, say on my Tyranids, you know, I'd love to have one of those massive Forge World Bio-Titan things, but that's never going to happen. But I do need, I say need, I do want to get some Decurion, is it Decurion models? I need the, I say need, do I need them? I want the two monstrous creatures with the big gun on the top. I can never remember the name of them. Exocrine, is it? Exocrines, I think. Was that the one with the mouth? Anyway, that model is a dual kit. I'd magnetise it. I want two of those. My Necrons, there's not much that I want in my Necrons. I'm quite happy buying So looking at older models for my Necron, so I'm sort of got a bit of a metal Necron kick at the moment, especially after the models that I got from Snake Eyes Gaming and Big Mac Dan Skull, the old warriors. So I'm getting a bit of an old metal Necron kick. But there's no new models really that I would say I really want. So that's that. Eldar, of course, I suppose we all want the new Eldar models. They look pretty awesome. And Space Wolves, yeah, I need lots of Thunderwolf cavalry. That's the main thing, because I'm going fluffy with the army. So I think Thunderwolf cavalry is what I need for my Space Wolves. Need. And what else? What other armies have I got? Dark Eldar, blah. Chaos, of course. I'm not going to talk Chaos too much here because I'm going to make some separate videos. But there are models that I want for Chaos, even though I have a massive box of Chaos models ready to go. So thank you, James, for that question. Next is from Andreas Peahc, and he says, what do you think about the 40k lore advancing instead of just staying as a setting? I know lots of guys who don't want the story to advance because they think 40k just being a setting is better. And this is a really good question, an interesting question. It's fair to say that I am a stick in the mud. I prefer things to stay the same. But I have to admit, I think what Games Workshop are doing with the Gathering Storm, whatever it's called, seems to be really good. I've just watched yesterday the Twitch feed where they're going over the new Shattered Beltan book, and the fact that it's like a campaign, and it is nudging the story forward, and according to a Facebook post that I've read from Warhammer TV, it's not going to be Age of Sigmar. It's not End Times, so that was quite interesting to read. But putting that aside, I think it's good. It's got to be good for Games Workshop. It's got to be good for the hobby, really. We all need excitement. We all need change. Change is good, isn't it? Sort of, most of the time. So, obviously, it does mean investment of money to move along with Games Workshop, but it's always been like that, hasn't it? You know, we've always needed new codex and new rule books and new models, and you know, and let's face it, if it wasn't like that, we'd get bored, wouldn't we? Next question is from Jake from Chief Live Gaming, and he says, if you could hold a 40k convention and have all your YouTube viewers present, what kinds of games would you set up? I'd set up 40k, obviously, because that's my main game, but I'd more than welcome others to bring their gaming systems, so we can play different stuff as well. He said, what kinds of games would you set up? I'd probably set up smaller games, like maybe 1,000-point games, and games that we could get through quite quickly, so we can play each other. You know, rather than 2,000-point games that can take up 4 hours, 5 hours in some cases. So I say 1,000 points, and then we can all sort of have a game with each other during the convention, if I were to do one. Thanks for the question, Jake. Good question. Next we have Essex Boys, and he says, do you think that Warhammer hobby is still a hobby, or has it become more of an addiction or obsession? So obviously this is aimed at me rather than in general. So has it become an addiction or obsession, or is it still just a hobby? It is still just a hobby, and this is actually quite interesting because Big Mac Dan Skull put a video up not that long ago. It's got this new series, like a topic chat series. It's really, really awesome. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. I'll put a link again in the description below to Big Mac. But yeah, he did a topic around addiction, and I watched that with interest, and at the end of it, it did make me think about me and my hobby, and I did conclude that I'm not addicted to this hobby. I absolutely love it. It's my heart and soul of my life, It's what I love to do, but I do enjoy doing other stuff as well. And it's definitely not an addiction. I mean, I went for about a week of not painting or doing any real hobby stuff. When I went to I went to War Games and I was playing the hobby, so maybe that doesn't count. But I wasn't painting. I definitely didn't get withdrawal from not painting. But then as soon as I started painting again, I really enjoyed that. So I can live without it, I suppose, is the answer. I think with an addiction it is, can you live without it? You know, you get a lot of smokers that say, oh yeah, I could give up any time. But we know they're just saying that. They can't give up any time. Can I give up this hobby any time? I think I could, but it would be devastating because it's my life. I love it. But I wouldn't say I'm addicted to it. I would just say that I enjoy it a lot. Either that, I'm just in denial. Okay, next question is from Warforge, from Craig, and he says, what would you like to see come out of Games Workshop next year and not come out next year? Now obviously this question was in 2016, so it's talking about this year. So what would I like to see come out this year, and what would I not like to see come out this year? What would I not like to see come out? I'm in a position where whatever Games Workshop brings out, no matter how shiny and new it is, I don't ever feel like I have to rush out and buy it. And I suppose this actually comes back to the question from Essex Boys, actually, because that was Dan Skull was talking about that as well. You know how like a model comes out and it's like it feels like he has to get it sometimes. I never feel like that. I feel like, oh yeah, of course, I feel like, oh, that looks awesome, you know, I would like that. But I never feel like I've got to buy that, you know, I'm going to pre-order it. I've never pre-ordered anything from Games Workshop. So I'm quite happy just to sit back and wait. I think having a huge following of YouTube videos helps, because if I can get all the information way before I need to actually buy anything, which is always great. Obviously, you know, it's the expense. Do I have the spare money for it? To be fair, probably not. But obviously there are certain things. I mean, if something, say, one of my main armies that I'm playing, like Necrons, comes out, I would like to buy it. And I haven't said that, I still haven't bought the Necron Overlord, the new Necron Overlord that came out. It's such an awesome model, I really like it. But I've got 2 Overlords. I don't actually need another Overlord, so I haven't bought it. So, yeah. Nothing really that I would say I don't want to see from Games Workshop. I mean, that includes if, although it's supposedly not happening, but if Games Workshop made 8th edition an Age of Sigmar game, I would just run with it. I'd still play, I'd buy the rulebook, I'd still play the game, I'm sure I'd have fun. And if it is a dumbed down, basic, more easier version that maybe evens out the game a bit more, it might actually encourage my buddy to play more and enjoy the game more. So, you know, there's nothing really that I would say I don't want to happen, or for Games Workshop not to release. What would I like them to release? Again, I'm in the same situation. So the answer really is, I don't really care, I suppose, because I'll just do my own thing anyway. Nice question though, thank you. Next question is from Graham Collin, who says, what's Decurion and what is CAD? So that was on a video that I was talking about previously when I was discussing, I think, Necrons. So Graham has been in the hobby for a very long time, but he hasn't been playing and using the rules and stuff that much recently. So a CAD is a combined arms detachment, and that basically is a standard force organisation chart, which is what you're used to, Graham. So it would be a HQ and 2 troops compulsory, and then also you've got your other like sections. So that's what basically a CAD is. So when people talk about I'm going to take a dual CAD, they're talking about a HQ and troops, and then a HQ and troops, giving them dual CADs. And then you've got Decurion, which I can never seem to pronounce very well. Decurion, I think it's Decurion. So that is basically almost like a formation stroke CAD. It's a set of units which generally include a core formation and then like an auxiliary formation, maybe a command formation, where you're restricted to certain units within the Decurion, but then you get extra bonuses. So in the Necrons, for example, you have to take the Reclamation Legion, which is like an overlord, some troops, some tomb blades. You know, you're limited what you can take. There are some optionals in there, like a 0 to whatever units, like a monolith, for example. You don't have to take it, but you can. And then you have your auxiliary units. There's 10 auxiliary units. You have to take at least one. And that's where you might have, say, a Catan, for example. And then some of the other formations, like the Canoptic Harvest and stuff, are within that. If you take that Decurion only, take your whole army as that restriction, then you gain some bonuses, things like Relentless, +1 to your RP roll, etc. So that's what a Decurion is. I think Necrons had the first one, I think. But obviously lots of codexes are now getting that format. So hopefully that explains it. It's pretty basic, but that's roughly what it is. Okay, next question is from Scragguard, from Craig. And he says, what flavour is your favourite coffee? It's a very interesting question. I think I'm thinking back to when I used to have a coffee machine with the proper beans, and we used to buy Tia Maria coffee, and that was lush. That was really, really nice. So I'm going to say Tia Maria coffee. So the next question is from a DZ Saber, and he's coming up to 100 subs, by the way, so go and check him out, give him a sub, let's get him up to 100. He says, what is the largest 40k army in points you've fielded in a game? Do you have a story for your craft world? So the largest points that I've ever played is 3,000 points, and that was the game against Aceface, which was so much fun. He had that massive Bio-Titan, Tiny, as he's called. I'm not really sure what the proper name is. Tiny. So 800 points, 1,000 points, something like that. And it's just such an awesome game. I played my Necrons. I had my Pylon out. Pylons are rubbish. We need some more rules against Workshop. Give us Skyfire and shooting on the ground. Anyway, so that was an awesome game, and the biggest game I think I played 2,500 points once a long time ago. But yeah, that was the biggest game that I played against Aceface. He also says, do you have a story for your craft world? And to be fair, I don't really have a story for my craft world. I'd love to have a story for them, but I don't really have one. Obviously, I've sort of half based it around Star Trek with the IDIC Eldar, Infinite Diversity and Infinite Combinations, which is the philosophy of Vulcans. And I use that because obviously Eldar have pointed ears and they live a long time, so there is a bit of a connection there. At one point when I first started, I did and ah about painting the whole army in the Vulcan sort of colours, like the Vulcan ships, but then I thought that'd be pretty drab because it's like a browny sort of colour, so I didn't do that. Obviously I went for purple and white, but that's about it really. So the answer is not really. I don't have a story for my Eldar. Okay, next is from Tattoo for You, Richard. He says, any plans for a family getaway in the future? Not really. My wife was talking about going to Greece for our wedding anniversary, but we'll see what happens there. Okay, let's have a look at the next page. The next question is from Jameson Kane, and he says, what was the most challenging model for you to build or paint? And since I am currently building and painting Tyranids, what units would you recommend for a starter army? So the most challenging model to build and paint, my immediate reaction would have been the Necron Monolith, because that is a pain in the bum to build. But I recently built a second one, and now I've got a lot more experience. I found it actually a lot easier than the first one that I built. But the Necron Monolith is a bit of a pain. I suppose I'm going to say Necron Ghost Ark, because I've fully magnetised that into the Doomsday Ark, including the gauze, the gun array thing. You can turn the guns upside down and everything. There's a lot of thoughts into that and a lot of work into doing that, but well worth it, because it's so awesome being able to choose that tank in both options. So I'm going to say the Ghost Ark. To paint, to build and or paint. To paint, most challenging, I suppose it's got to be the Avatar and the Wraith Knight. Really anything that's big models are more challenging because I don't own an airbrush. So, you know, they're harder work. Since I'm currently building Tyranids, what units would you recommend for a starter army? Well, for yourself, we've got, I think it's 100 Gants you're painting. Yeah, a couple of Turbogons to go with those Gants would be pretty useful. Excuse me, and probably a couple of drop pods, Tyrannocytes. I think they're called, aren't they? So you can drop those Gants in as well. I don't know if you've got any Devil Gants with the Devourers, but they're great in pods, or at least a 50-50 mix. So you have 10 with the big gun, 10 without, and then the ones at the front you put without the gun, so they die first. You still got your big guns to shoot. But that's just for your point of view. What units would you recommend for a starter army for Tyranids? Well, of course, you'll be looking at HQs first and troops. So HQs, I mean, it's pretty obvious that a Flying Hive Tyrant is a very good choice. You've got psychic support, you've got some good gun options if you go for the twin-linked Devourers, and it's a flying monstrous creature. It's a pretty solid HQ choice. So I'd start with that. I'd probably recommend in troops. It's a tough one with troops because it depends on the direction that you want to take your army. Gene Stealers are good for troops because they don't rely on synapse. Even though they die quite quick, they're still a nice, fun, solid. They are solid, a troops choice, because you can have a couple of Gene Stealer units just to make trouble. You know, just to camp on objective in a building, go to ground, etc. So Gene Stealers, I suppose if you want synapse, it's got to be warriors, and then just Gants. Yeah, and then from then on, I mean, honestly, with Tyranids, they're not in a fantastic place at the moment. I would generally recommend with Tyranids just to go for the models that you like. Go for the units that you like the look of, you like how the rules work. For me, Morlocks, I love Morlocks, I think they're awesome, so I'd recommend Morlocks to anyone because they're so much fun and they're a fantastic model. But yeah, with Tyranids at the moment, I would just say get the models that you like the look of, to be fair. So yeah, thanks for your question. Next is Lakey War Games, and he says, you said you like being a more competitive player. Does this affect your aesthetic choice when building your models? For example, with my Grey Knights army, I think they look better and cooler with halberds, but I give them swords because it's more points efficient and better in the game. Which is a very interesting question. And yes, I did say I like being more of a competitive player. I think what I really meant is that I'm quite a competitive person. So that comes out obviously in my games, but to answer your question, I always magnetise my stuff if I can. So I have the option for the cooler weapon as well as the more efficient weapon. So if I'm playing a friendly, fun game, I can put on the weapons that I think look cool, and then if I'm going somewhere where I think it's going to be a bit more competitive, I can put the more, the better weapon on. So magnetisation really solves that issue for me, because I can have both. That's a good question. Next is from Mini Warzone, and he says, what is your favourite series that you currently make on your channel? In terms of success, I suppose it's got to be Back to Basics. I'm guessing some very good views on there, some very good comments on there. It's great to have a weekly series that I can concentrate on. I'm enjoying making them. And I'm getting some great feedback from them. Even when I went to WarGames, I had a couple of people coming up to me saying, how great the Back to Basics have been, really useful. So I'm going to have to say the Back to Basics series. Having said that, I do really enjoy the Q&As, this series. So yeah, but Back to Basics I'm going to name as my favourite one at the moment. So next is Wargamer Sean, and he says, have any travel plans for holidays, which I've sort of answered, and then shopping done for the wife and kids. Of course he means Christmas shopping, and yes, of course, that was all done and dusted. So I got my wife a bracelet that she wanted. Yeah, she's into, she likes gold, but it's got to be white gold, not just yellow gold as she calls it. So I just let her, she sent me a link, said I want this one, I bought it for her, plus other stuff, chocolates and stuff. And then my daughter, she got a bike. My youngest got a bike, my two eldest got money. Yeah, they're 14, 15, they want money. Plus obviously a few like stocking fillers, but that was the main present. Okay, next question is from our favourite wolf brother, Mythos, Frost and Fists. And yeah, he says, A, how do you like your combat? Sniped and full stealth? Shot to pieces at a distance? Up close and personal in melee? My first army was Necrons, and that's a very shooty army, or at least it was. A very shooty army. I'm really enjoying playing close combat Necrons. But yeah, my first army was Necrons, and that's why I went Space Wolves for my second army. A close combat weapon. Bearing in mind, this was back in 4th edition, where close combat was king. So I went for the Space Wolves. So I've got a mixture of armies, shooting and assault. I think I prefer shooting. I think it's a bit more, it's cleaner. You line up your army and you shoot your enemy before they get to you. So I'm going to say shot to bits at distance. It says B, what do you think is more important in a warrior? Strength, speed, or technique? They're obviously all important, and combined together makes a deadly warrior. But if you had to choose one of those, strength, speed, or technique? Well, speed is good, but if you don't have any strength or technique to go with it, it's pretty useless unless you're running away. So I'm going to say not speed. Strength is very useful. I mean, if you're just a big brute and you're really strong, that can be quite useful. But if you've got no technique, and if you're really slow across the battlefield, probably isn't going to be much good. So technique, being really good at something but not being that strong, being slow, again isn't going to make you that good. So it's a tough choice. Okay, if I looked across the battlefield and I saw someone that was fast, someone that had really good technique, and someone that was mega strong, who would I be most afraid of? I'd probably be the most afraid of the mega strong one. So I'm going to say strength. Okay. Now C, what are your favourite ranged and melee weapons in 40k? What do you fancy in real life? I'm assuming you mean what weapons do I fancy in real life. Okay, favourite ranged and melee weapons. A favourite ranged weapon. I think the most fun ranged weapon is a flamer. Just putting down a flame template and going. That's fun, isn't it? I don't use flamers in pretty much any of my armies because I don't actually think they're that great. I know a lot of people like them, but I'm not a fan of flamers, even though I think they're a fun weapon. So I'm going to say the flamer, maybe. Melee weapons, my favourite in 40k, a melee weapon. Oh, of course, we used to all love power weapons, didn't we? Howling Banshees with power weapons, wow. Power weapons are rubbish now. So it's got to be AP2 weapons. So any AP2 weapon that's got good strength. Yeah. Next one is from our funny friend Nerdopolis Prime. Yeah, thanks for this question, Nerdo. Okay, he says, often dogs look like their owners. In 40k, that's sometimes also true. And here comes the embarrassing part. Judging by their appearance, and if you wouldn't know them, which army would you think the following people would play? Tattoo for you, Richard. Okay, this is such a hard question. So please don't take offence, anyone, by my answers. So tattoo for you, when I look at tattoo for you, when I look at Richard, I see a guy with tattoos, beard, sometimes wearing a bandana. I see a biker. So I'm going to say that he would be... So what armies would they play? Okay, so he would be playing some sort of Space Marine army, a bike-orientated army. I don't think it'd go White Scars, they're too pure. So was it Raven Wing? Okay, a Raven Wing army. Yes. Either that, an Orc biker army. An Orc biker army. Okay, so that's what I think Richard would be playing. Ace Face. Now this is a hard one. Ace Face, just from looks. It's almost impossible. I am going to say Chaos Space Marines for Ace Face. Because I think he's got quite a cheeky character. So hard this. I'm going to say Chaos Space Marines. I don't think he'd be playing Space Marines. So if I just looked at Ace Face and had to guess, I'd say Chaos Space Marines. Nerdo. Not me. Oh no, Nerd. Not me. The Frost and Fists one. Now the next question is Mythos. So I'm assuming he means Freak. So what army do you think? Oh, I think Freak would be playing if I just saw him. Freak. Space Marines, I think. I just could say probably Ultramarines, just basic Space Marines. Mythos from Frost and Fists. Love that guy, by the way, he says in brackets. Yeah, me too. And I'm just going to go all out, just say Space Wolves, because if I didn't say Space Wolves, he'd probably make a trip over to the UK and get one of his frost axes out. So yeah, Mythos, of course, Space Wolves. He looks like a Space Wolves player, of course. Sean Gately from Blue Table Painting. Sean. I think he does look like... I know he does play Eldar, but I'm going to say Eldar. I think he would play Eldar. The last one is Donald Trump. What army, just from looks, would I say Donald Trump would play? That is a hard one. Imperial Guard? I've got to come up with an answer, haven't I? Thanks, Nerdopoulos, for that question. Next is from Wargames, Martin McNeil, and he says, if Games Workshop were to go out of business, would you just carry on with what you already have, or would you migrate to another game system? So, if they went out of business, would I just carry on? I definitely wouldn't sell all my stuff and just start another gaming system. I might be tempted to start another gaming system just because it's nice to have something new. Pardon me. But I would definitely continue just gaming and stuff with what I've got. I've still got loads of stuff to paint, so that's not an issue. And then there's always the second-hand market. Of course, prices probably would go up a lot, but I think I would just carry on. But I think also I probably would start another gaming system. Something like Drop Fleet Commander, is it? One with the spaceships and stuff. Something like that, probably. But yeah. So we're on to the last question, and I know this is going to be a quick one, however, I'm going to read it out. It's from Hero of Cadia, and he says, I have a bit of a hard one, as I know you don't play video games and probably haven't read that much of the lore. So, you can skip it if you don't feel like answering it. Anyway, do you think the Blood Ravens can be a chapter of the Purged Legion, if I can say it right, one of the 2 Lost Legions? I haven't got a clue. Sorry. Purged Legion, I haven't got a clue. Lost Legion, I haven't got a clue. Blood Ravens obviously are some sort of Space Marine army. Yeah, I'm going to skip it, sorry. Yeah, video games, I don't do video games, guys. So, yeah, waste of time really putting video game questions down, honestly, I'm sorry. But it is. Okay, so that is the Q&A done. So I really, really hope you enjoyed the answers. I certainly enjoyed making the video. Please, please, please pop some more questions in the comments box below. If you want to ask me a question but don't want to put it in the comments box, maybe you want to keep it anonymous, then you can email me at idicbeer@gmail.com. Okay, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video.